This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined as always by Johnny Nelson. We're here at the Charlie Edwards-Moreno weigh-in. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm all right, thank you very much. It's nice to be back out in the mix again. Really good for Charlie Edwards to be topping the bill at the Copper Box, and it's really nice to see a young man that loves being champion, loves the adulation and the attention that he's getting, and he's just thinking, man, I can't believe this happened to me. When he walked in here earlier on, the crowd cheered for him, and he couldn't believe it. He was so happy.
Now, you're somebody who you had your own kind of ups and downs in your career before you became world champion, similar to Charlie. Charlie went and boxed Casemiro, was unfortunately come up short. Just how much of a confidence builder does that give you, getting over the hump, as it were, becoming world champion after kind of going through the ups and downs of a professional career?
When you go through the downs, you've got to look and try and draw positives from it. So when he lost in his first attempt, it would have told him he rightfully so belongs at that level. He just needs to tweak one or two things. So he actually learnt more from that fight than anything, because he could have won it and not learnt anything and lost it in his first and second defence. So for Charlie Edwards, I think every experience is good or bad, is good for him to be a rounded champion. And there's not many champions that are out there that have got a tag as world champion and believe they're the best in the world. Charlie Edwards probably doesn't believe that at the moment, but I think the more he fights, the more he defends, then I think, you know what, I'm actually the best in the world.
Moving right to the rest of the card, you've got a couple of British title fights on the card. Start off with Lawrence Okolie versus Waddy Camacho. I think it's fair to say not best of friends. Just break that fight down for me.
I think it's a good fight. I think Lawrence Okolie has not got the credit he deserves, and I've probably been guilty of being one of those so-called know-it-alls. But Okolie, I think, is head and shoulders above domestic level now. And I think I'm surprised he nates cruiserweight. I think he'll end up at heavyweight. I think he beats Camacho. I like Camacho, but I also think Camacho's past his best. Again, it's not taking anything away from Lawrence Okolie, because he's got to do what he's got to do. He's collected, and every title that's been put in front of him. So I think this year, or the beginning of next year, is going to be big for Lawrence Okolie. It's going to be an interesting fight. It's not a case of if he wins, it's a case of how he wins.
Now, you just mentioned the fact that you're surprised that Lawrence can make cruiserweight. Raised a few eyebrows recently when he called out a heavyweight, Dillian Whyte. Just your thoughts on that?
Good on him. Good on him. You know, when you're a cruiserweight, you know, people don't understand. If you're a cruiserweight, you can usually fight and usually spar with a lot of heavyweights when you're prepping. So if Lawrence Okolie thinks, you know what, I could beat him, it doesn't matter what me and you think. If he thinks he can do it, fine. And so he doesn't mind throwing his hat into the ring and saying, come on, let's get it on. You know, they've sparred before. They're familiar with each other. Dillian is a fully fledged heavyweight. Will it happen? Probably not yet. Probably not for a while. But again, you can't knock it. You knock his confidence and self-belief. It doesn't matter if I believe he could beat Dillian Whyte, as long as he believes that's what's important. So it's caused a few waves as well.
Now, you know Dillian, you know Lawrence. Dillian's due to be in attendance tomorrow night. It's fair to say quite a few people are quite interested to see what happens if they cross paths. Are you one of those people?
I think it'll be handbags at dawn. I don't think these guys will actually push it further than what they should push it. It's our sport, it's a business, and you're always going to get two fighters that think they can beat each other, bumping into each other. It'd be nice to watch from a distance, but I don't think anything will occur from it.
Another British title fight on the card. Josh Buatsi competes for the vacant light heavyweight title against Liam Conroy. Just your thoughts on that fight?
Joshua Buatsi against Conroy, and I'm not writing Conroy off. I just think Joshua Buatsi, again, is European level at this stage. I don't see it. The only person I see domestically making me think hard and long about that fight is Anthony Yard. But Joshua Buatsi, you look at his career, you look at how he's dispatched everybody that's in front of him and dealt with them with ease. And then you look at a world champion, you look at his early fights and see how how they have dealt with domestic champions. You realise the depth and the potential of a lot of fights coming through. So for Buatsi, I think Buatsi, he'll get the job done. He'll probably not get the credit he deserves for the win, because they're praising him, saying this guy's good, but he's making light work at domestic level.
Just mentioned Anthony Yard. Recently he's been mandated to face Sergey Kovalev for the WBO light heavyweight title. Just your thoughts on that fight? Do you think it will happen?
Yeah, well, if that's been thrown in the mix, yeah, without a doubt. And again, he's making his own passes and concentrating what's in front of him. So Anthony Yard, again, once these boys, we could try and get Yard and Boatse together, but right now there's not enough on the table in regards to juicing up a juicy fight. So these boys will pick up belts, will pick up medals, will pick up success down the line, then put them together.
A lot of people feel that a step up to Sergey Kovalev by Anthony Yard is a little bit premature. Do you subscribe to that? Do you give him any chance of beating Sergey Kovalev if that fight happens?
You know what? Because it's Sergey Kovalev, people are thinking, no, don't do it because of what we've seen. Is he the same fighter? No, he's not. Time waits for no man. Time does nobody any favours. It's a good scalp to have on your record. I don't think it's an impossible task. I think it's a task that you can pull off. I don't think Kovalev is the same fighter he was. So why not?
Lewis Ritson also returns on this card, moving up in weight. Was at lightweight, now he's moved up. I think general consensus was he's very tight at the weight for a number of fights, really. How excited are you to see him back in the ring? Do you think the extra weight will help him?
Yeah, it will do. What happens is, I could get you down to welterweight, but you know what? You won't be able to tie your shoelaces or walk straight. So you've got to be strong in your position and where you are. So for him to move up a weight, he'll feel so much better. And you think, why didn't I do this earlier? It's just growing. The boy's growing, and so I think it's a chance for us to see him at a newer weight to see how comfortable he is.
Final one for this card. Jason Quigley, who of course boxes at your old gym, the Winker Bank, under Dominic Ingle. He makes his UK debut, which seems crazy to think because he's an Irishman, but it's the first time he's boxed in the UK. How much have you seen of Jason Quigley in the gym in your old stomping ground?
Jason Quigley used to be a Sky Scholar. Jason Quigley, as an amateur, was a Sky Scholar. Jason Quigley decided to leave the scholarship and follow his dreams and go to the west coast of America and sign up with Oscar De La Hoya. You know, only dreams are made of that. I've seen Jason out there in LA and Las Vegas, and he was living the dream. And he was treated like a king. And then he phoned me and he said, I want to come home. I said, you want to leave the west coast and come to Sheffield? Really? And that's what he does. He loves the game more than the fame. So he said it wasn't real out there. You know, get the training done, but then what? You know, you're on some red carpet or you're doing whatever. This kid loves to fight. This kid can train. This kid loves the position he's in. I think Jason Quigley's time will come, but so far he's done everything expected of him, and he can fight. And he's such a nice kid.
Another one of your stable mates, Kid Galahad. Barry finds himself fighting for the world title, the IBF featherweight title against Josh Warrington. Saw a very, very spicy press conference this week. Thoughts on that?
Interesting. And again, you've got two boys that have grown up. These two have fought each other already twice in amateurs. The first time Barry had probably had about 4 or 5 fights. Josh Warrington was like a national champion or whatever, and he beat Barry. And then Barry came along when he got a bit more experience before they turned pro, and again they boxed each other again. He believes he beat him hands down, but he gave Warrington a decision. Now these two boys have turned into men. These two boys are now in positions where I think, you know what, I fancy this. And we look at the rise of Josh Warrington, how he's dealt with people like Frampton, how he's dealt with people like Selby, and you think, wow, this guy has been, we've underrated him, we've not given him the credit where he deserves. But then these guys are the same guys that Barry's been sparring with. Selby, you know, and excellent sparring, and he handles them with ease. I think Warrington has the fortune of pace, a good engine, excellent fitness. So he doesn't give an opponent time to breathe, keeps in the face all the time, which I like, and that's why he's been so successful. So therefore, Barry's got to be in a position to control what's in front of him. So let's see how this table will turn. But it's going to be good.
As I mentioned, that was a very spicy press conference. One of the things that kind of was a recurring theme throughout was Barry's history with performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously served a ban, 1 or 2, if not more, criticisms levelled at him and Dominic Ingle. What did you make of that?
That's how it is. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. If you've got a cloud that, like that above you, you've got to take it. You've got to take the criticism. You've got to take the questions that are asked. You've got to be whiter than white. You've got to make sure that you do everything right from that point onwards, because people will always say, well, you know what, you know, you got done. You know, and it's happened with other fighters before in the past. Even Roy Jones, it's happened with him in the past, and people are very fickle. They'll develop amnesia when it suits. So for Barry, he's just got to make sure he keeps it clean. He makes sure he does everything expected of him, because he can't afford another slip up. And so, yeah, Dominic and Barry are going to get that kind of stick. Get on with the job. The job is fine.
Well, you mentioned that obviously Roy Jones is a number of fighters over the years have tested positive. James Toney is another fighter. What do you think that boxing overall, not just talking about Barry and Dominic now, but what do you think boxing overall needs to do to kind of reassess the landscape when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs?
Well, as a fighter, I boxed 3 fighters that failed the drug test. I beat 2 and drew with 1 of them. It ain't nice. Because you put your heart and soul into it, and then you get beat by then end up drawing with someone that's a prolific cheat. This guy had lost. Gumalo Jones, he'd failed the drug test 3-4 times, and so to me, it felt unfair. There was an injustice there. So when it comes to that, the governing bodies, they need to handle these things correctly. They need to really look at it, right, this is potentially what could happen. Say, for instance, I'm taking drugs and I knock you out cold and I fail a drug test after that, then I can rightfully take legal action against you to get you arrested. And when that sort of stuff starts happening, people will think, you know what, I better think twice about that. These are the things these are the levels you've got to go to.
Do you think enough's being done to tackle, I mean, fighters, certainly not condoning fighters taking performance-enhancing drugs, but if it is as rife as a lot of people believe it to be in the sport, then you can kind of see from a fighter's point of view who've dedicated a number of years to the sport why they may be tempted to do it. In my personal opinion, I don't think enough is being done to catch people who kind of facilitate that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I hear that, totally hear that. So therefore, it's because most of these fighters aren't former scientists or professors. They've got to be advised, and they've got to know where to go, who to speak to. Get to the source. Get to the source. Get to the source where this is coming from, and that's where you want to tackle it. And fighters probably get caught through lack of education and lack of understanding or naivety. But again, go to the source. Go to the source, and that's where the shit really needs to hit the fan.
Another thing, all things Ingle related. Billy Joe Saunders, somebody who coincidentally has also failed a drugs test recently, has also left the gym. Yeah. Just what did you think of that? It was quite an abrupt split from Dominic.
No, and it wasn't really, because remember, Billy Joe's been in the gym and now he's left now. But Billy Joe's a pack fighter. And when I say that, he's the sort of fighter that flourishes when he's surrounded by other fighters in the gym to lift him, that competition in the gym. Some fighters are solitary fighters, like Tony Bellew. He liked training in the gym by himself. Billy Joe, before he came to the England gym, he was in that state, and he didn't like it. He'd fallen out of love with the game. He'd lost interest. And then he joined the gym where there was a lot of competition in-house, and he loved it again. I think he's forgotten. I don't know what the setup is he's going to now. I know he's looking at working in Ben Davison. But if he's back to living that solitude life again and training on his own, I believe he'll be back. I do believe he'll be back, because some fighters, they know what brings the best out of them.
Last thing, Sheffield related, as it were, Kell Brook. Rumours that he's going to be potentially returning to the ring on the Anthony Joshua undercard, or certainly returning to the ring soon. By all accounts, it could potentially be another, I don't like to use the term tune-up fight, because, I mean, every fight should be treated with a certain level of seriousness, but that would, by my recollection, make it 3 tune-up fights, quote-unquote, in 15 months. What do you make of Kell's career so far? He's still unable to land that kind of marquee fight post-Golovkin or Spence.
We don't know whether to turn left or right, and he's looking for those opportunities. He's probably looking for that one big fight, and obviously it was Khan. That's never going to happen. So he's thinking, I'll move up, and when he moves up, then he's got to decide which one of the champions he's going to go to, Super Welter. And so he's got to look for that opportunity. He's got to make sure everybody fights at that level, as being a champion or being in with a champion that has that experience, that gets him one step closer to fighting for the title. That's what he's got to do. And for Kell, it's hard. It's going to be tough. But again, he's just got to. Once you've been a world champion and you're boxed on the undercard of somebody else, it's a hard pill to swallow. But he's got to find how much he wants it, how much he wants to succeed.
Kelly's mandatory, or was mandatory, challenger for Jarrett Hurd, who's now going to be fighting Julian Williams. What do you make of Kell's career? Because before Sean Porter boxed your Dennis Ugas a couple of weeks ago, I watched the Brook Porter fight from Carson. And I was kind of not surprised, but I kind of forgot how easily Kell handled Sean Porter, who is still now WBC champion. If somebody would have told me that fighter there wouldn't have a significant win since, I would have said, no, you're crazy. What do you kind of make of the way he's gone since then, really? He hasn't really been able to ever capitalise on that.
No, he hasn't, and you've got to think, some fighters reach their star a lot earlier, and then when they've reached their star, they just can't get any better, they can't do any better. Kell is an excellent fighter. I've seen what Kell can do. I've seen what Kell can achieve. I've seen the magic he can produce. So now he's thinking, I'm going to make sure every fight means something. Fights he's shown in between that. When he boxed Triple G, I thought the fight against Triple G, it was a big gamble, a massive gamble. If he'd have pulled it off, it would have been massive. But I think in the long term, you looked and you think that made a massive difference to his career. Because once he got that eye had gone, once he had the fear of what had gone on with that, then when he boxed Spence, again, that same fear came back again. I think it scarred him. So has he got the fight? Has he got that deep down determination that it takes to push through when the pressure's on? I don't know. I know Kell's got ball. I know Kell can fight. I know Kell. But it's a case of how much does he want to fight. Kell does what's good for him. Kell's taken himself, showed commitment when it comes to training. He's training camp, and he's taken himself away to Future Ventura again. And I like that. That's a nice thing to see.
I saw something very recently saying that he'd be interested in a Spence rematch at 147 pounds.
Spence said the same. Spence said the same.
Good move.
It's a big move, and why not? And see, at the time I said, Kell, it wasn't. I thought he beat Spence, and when he boxed Spence was the only fighter I've seen physically manhandle Kell around the ring after halfway through the fight, and that's because I thought Kell couldn't make the weight, and I was right. Even though Kell said he can make welterweight, you can't. Again, I could get you down to welterweight. You won't be able to tie your shoelaces though. You're going to be able to fight at the weight where you are strong as an ox. You are like king of the ring. And Spence proved, Kell, you're not a welterweight anymore. So at 154, let's see what difference it is then. Is Kell the same fighter? Is his star still shining brightly? We don't know, but 154, let's see if it's a completely different kettle of fish.
But you wouldn't like to see that fight again at 147?
Nah, not in a million years. Not in a million years.
Okay, just moving away from all things Sheffield related and Saturday night. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, their saga continues. We've recently seen Deontay Wilder reportedly turn down a reported $100 million offer. Thoughts on that?
The devil's in the detail. We don't know enough about that offer that's been put forward to him. The funny thing is, he was kind of saying the same thing about Anthony Joshua turning down a $50 million deal. So now the shoe's on the other foot. So now he kind of understands the dilemma of such a deal. The devil's in the detail. So that's all we know. We know he's turned down a massive offer. We don't know the details of the offer, and it's up to him to divulge or not. But for the first time, especially Deontay Wilder, what surprised me was he let Shelley Finkel do the talking for him. Well, whereas when Deontay Wilder, he's one of the loudest heavyweights out there. And he was doing an interview, and Shelley said, "No, I'll answer this." And Deontay shut up and let my man do the talking. I thought, wow. So now you're looking, it's not just about fighting, it's about the business side of it as well. So I assume he understands now why he and Joshua had not got it on so up to this point, because there's certain sacrifices you have to make to get what you want.
Can we realistically expect to see those two in the ring? I think one thing that people are slightly overlooking is the fact that the fight can still happen. Deontay Wilder hasn't kind of, with all due respect to Tyson Fury, him going to ESPN makes that a lot more difficult for everything else. Do you think realistically we can expect to see that fight this year?
Any fight can happen, especially with the TV networks being involved now and the money that's being generated. You've seen TV networks work together on big fights, so any fight can happen.
Just last week, because I know you're being pulled away by Adam Smith, Tyson Fury rumoured to be returning to the ring against Tom Schwartz, unbeaten WBO number 2 ranked heavyweight. Thoughts on that?
Good for Tyson Fury. I'm good now. He's signed a massive deal with ESPN. He's no longer going there as an opponent. He's going there as the A side. So good he's benefiting from what he's done.
Okay, well, Johnny Nelson, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, John. Nice one, mate. Thank you.